Alright, it is time that we have to talk about the dang quest that happened in 4.2. This is the first time I'm doing something like this, mainly because every other time I really wanted to do it, I already knew that the viewership was one, not going to be there, and two, not everybody really cares for Genshin on this channel like that. It's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, and I respect that, but I still want to do it and talk about it, and I really don't want to let this opportunity slip by again. So when it comes down to things, we'll be talking about obviously the last main big Archon quest that happened for Fontaine, and I'll be using the footage from Streetwise Rhapsody as, it kind of plays through the background, so we could talk about it in more detail as things kind of go on. Link will be definitely in the description for you just to go check out the regular video if you just want to without me talking over it, and basically, go ahead and get that personal subscribe button as well. So when it comes down to things, man, they really wanted you to feel sad, depressed, and your ass getting beaten literally all throughout this quest. Can I just tell you how crazy this quest was? Right? Let's honestly just start with the rating. I'm gonna give this shit like a 9.9 out of 10. Right? It is most likely the best quest in the entirety of Genshin when it comes to Archon quest. It is the best quest, honestly. There's just so much to go into it, and I'll try to, keep it consistent, not try to go all over the place, but you're gonna have to forgive me if I end up doing that. So, when it comes down to things, going into this quest, not necessarily starting it, obviously, if you pay attention, we don't know shit about Farina at all. The whole thing was that, what is her whole big deal of keeping secrets? What secret is she basically hiding? What the hell is going on? And all this sort of stuff, right? And you're basically just not necessarily knowing anything before you start this quest. And so when you actually do start the quest, it's just depressing from the jump. When you leave the damn prison and you go talk to Nubelette to figure out that, oh, this random ass earthquake, yeah, this is coming from Hassan, so you might need to go over there. Only to find out that Hassan got hit with this massive ass nonsense of, water and shit everywhere, and essentially just out, having people suffering, losing people because they got dissolved into the water, only for you to reach Navia to figure out that Malus and Silver, her right-hand men, are effing dead, and they're not coming back, which was kind of shocking for me, especially when you think, oh, this is a Genshin game, they'll do that. No, they won't, honestly. They did not come back. And I know some people were like, that is well versed in gacha games, or at least Hoyoverse games, saying that when the sky starts cracking in like some type of scene or whatever, that shows you something crazy or strange is going to start happening. And granted, but people like myself, who probably has never really picked up a gacha game like that before, didn't know this shit. So honestly, yeah, they really turned that shit up to 11, and they were not necessarily holding back at all. Like, this is probably the first time for a lot of people really to sit down and just be like, damn, people are actually dying, and this shit cannot be going on like this. This is some bullshit, honestly. So I'm already feeling immediately bad for Navia, right? And as the time goes on, you end up seeing that she goes into this dang dungeon with you, only for her to fall into the damn seawater herself, only for her to be basically almost turned into a damn oceanid. I know they call it oceanids, I'm calling it oceanid, F you, when it comes down to things, only for the ocean forms of Malus and Silver to come through just to save her ass, just so she doesn't, basically dissolve into the water too, right? And Nubelette, being the Chad that he is, coming through and also protecting the shit out of Navia as well. Fast forward a little bit, you see them talk about the prophecy and notice the slates and stuff, and then you obviously realize that, okay, well, if these slates are here, surely Farina might know something about this. So the next day you go into her office to see her having a whole ass argument with Nubelette, basically not saying a damn thing, basically going against, what he wants to figure out, essentially, only to protect her secrets. And she basically disks off, which now we have to make a plan and try to trap the damn Archon for her to spill her damn secrets. So guess what they end up doing? Putting this lady on a whole ass trial, as you're probably seeing. And when it comes down to things, this is where shit goes wild, honestly. Now, I watched some theories about what could potentially be the case about Fontaine and its people and all the sorts of that stuff, and they were right, and I might need to stop watching theory videos after that because I don't need to figure out anything else. I like to let the story just tell me. But when it comes down to things, I definitely was just in for a damn roller coaster ride, honestly, when it comes to this, because we proved that Farina is not the damn Archon. She is harboring some type of secret as to why she can't say anything, which is weird. And then obviously she is a regular human when it comes down to things, because she put her hand in that primordial seawater and was having a bit of that, effects of the damn water happening to her. The Traveler and everybody else slowly try to break down this character of what Farina's been playing this entire time, and just break her in front of the entirety of all of Fontaine, and just leaving her in a place of just absolute destitute and just not having a really great mental state at the time, right? And it even gets even more crazier when you see that we found that hidden stone slat somewhere that Fremine found, and then the whole thing was basically saying that, the curse was essentially Ageria making Fontainian people, and that was something that they were supposed to do, and so Celestia put a curse on them, and that's why they dissolve and stuff like that, because they originally were Oceanids, and all that sort of stuff, and it just gets wilder and wilder as time goes on. Then when you get to damn Oratrice making neat down this kind of, now you gotta dance to when you say it, but when it comes down to things, you end up figuring out that, oh shit, well, Farina is guilty, but the bitch is about to die. And you're just like, wait, what? Ain't that a little overkill? Vache didn't even get a damn, freaking, like, death sentence towards him. So that's a little wild, honestly. And it is. But when it comes down to things, that's just kind of how it went, though, for some reason. And so that's when you end up seeing, this big-ass mother effing whale coming through, just starting to wanting to eat the shit out of some of these people in the damn opera house, only for Child to come through and be like, no, you're not eating anything today, you're gonna be eating my damn fist and maybe a bit of cock at the end of the day. So that's how it went, and Child still fighting that damn, whale and shit. And so while that's happening, the Oratrice is like, alright, you taking way too much time, stop talking, let me kill this bitch. And so obviously you have the Traveler come through, try to save her, but end up getting sucked into Farina's inner mind, while Neuvillette actually meets the real deal Hydro Archon at that point. And then it's revealed that the whole purpose of why Farina is acting the way she is, why the actual Archon Focalor is there, is mainly because she wanted to fool the Heavenly Principles and basically try to save her people at the same time. And to do that, she needed Farina to basically act like she's the Archon. And she's not the Archon, but she needed to put her fully into that position to deceive the Heavenly Principles, so, they can still save Fontaine at the end of the day, and also get rid of, the damn Hydro Archon throne chair shit in Celestia too. But that's not the only other reason why, too. The other reason was to restore Neuvillette in his power, because he used to be a full-blown dragon. He's not a full-blown dragon at the moment. But by destroying and killing the Hydro Archon, you now can give him back his full power, and that is something that Focalor really wanted to do. By basically fixing the mistake that Ageria did, and then try to fix everything else and to restore something back to someone that had their power stolen and shit. And it's just like, damn. So overall, if you really look at this, Neuvillette was really the damn Archon the entire time. He just didn't know it yet. Which is why he's basically like the MVP of the entire damn Fontaine arc, honestly. So when it comes down to things, we have on that side, but what about the Traveler and Farina's inner mind? You got to see exactly what Farina had to deal with the entire 500 years she's been playing this role of being this Hydro Archon, only for you to figure out that she's been suffering hella hard. And it's not necessarily anything really nice. You see her mentally breaking, like at one point she's crying without even noticing, her eyes are switching, and I never felt more sad for a character, honestly. So she's been doing this for years, and the only reason why she didn't tell the Traveler why, things went this way, when it comes down to, what she had to do, was because she had like a duty to protect the secret, obviously. Because if she doesn't necessarily keep the secret, then that means obviously Celestia could probably do something, or it won't necessarily work with the plan and stuff like that. So she had to keep it a secret, even towards the Traveler herself. So that just kind of is what it is on that front. So you have that happen, you figure out what Farina's inner mind goes into. Now we have the power to basically take down that bitch ass whale, which should have been a weekly boss, but whatever. But when it comes down to things, you have the strength to basically take down that damn whale, and essentially, you basically go fight this thing in this weird ass, otherworldly looking place, only for this shit to be a very quick, easy fight, unfortunately. And what ends up happening is that someone takes the big ass whale, turns it into a black hole ass ball, and then chuck that shit along with Child into this bitch ass black hole. And it's none other than Child's master Skirk, who basically looks cool as shit. Skirk ended up telling them that basically the whale was just nothing more than a damn pet, or really something that shouldn't even really be considered a pet. The only thing that was mattering about it is his looks, and that's about it to her. And to be perfectly honest, yeah, she is someone that really doesn't feel like she cares about anything, especially if it's weaker than her, so she's one of those type of people. She basically goes out her way to also explain that the prophecy that they've been trying so hard to avoid is actually in full swing while they're speaking to her. But there's a good thing about this, because Focalor had to die to basically give Neuvillette his power. Neuvillette ended up forgiving the sin of the people, so they don't necessarily be fully fledged primordial sea dissolving ass people anymore. So you know what happened when the flood came? The flood did happen to hit Fontaine. She was crying on her throne, but guess what? The people ain't necessarily dead no more. Outside the people that did get hit with that primordial water before, you know, that happened. But still, nonetheless, everybody else that got hit when Neuvillette basically forgave everybody's sins, essentially, they're fine. Everybody is surviving in the water. No one is dissolved. And that is the nice part about it. And finally, after all this time, Farina is done with that role of being the fake Archon for the 500 years. She has her freedom to basically do whatever the hell she wants to now, because they just see the hell at principles. And that's essentially about it for the quest, essentially. Like, yes, we also have some information from, you know, where we gotta go to next in Natlan, and how that world, how that basically that country is gonna be. And essentially we did get a bit more information about Skirk, about the Gnosis, and how it's the actual remains of someone who was not from Teyvat, with the third Descender, which is pretty damn wild. The fact that, oh, you can make these awful powerful weapons and essentially use them out of the dead bodies of people that don't belong in this world. That's a bit weird, that's a bit wild, but okay, cool. And then that kind of brings you in with a lot of other questions. And hell, even Skirk was like, hey yo, real talk? Them Gnosis, you might not necessarily want them hoes. You might need to just get rid of them as soon as possible, because you might get hit with something that you don't want to see. And so that's why, obviously, as per usual, the Fatui get the Gnosis. But at least it's earned this time, right? So that kind of is what it is, because the Knave was actually helping out people, even though it was more so because of conflicting interests. But still, it is what it is when it comes down to things. And as Farina goes, she basically moved out the opera house and essentially just started trying to live life on her own and wanting to be alone for a little while until you play the story quest. But we ain't gonna get into that too much. Kinda we will, but not really. But that is basically the summary about the damn quest, without going into a lot of details that came through it. So, I feel like I had to explain all that first before I go into depth as to what makes this quest so important and why I feel like I have to talk about it. So, let's start off with the MVPs of this damn quest line, which is going to be Neuvillette, and it's going to be Sadine. Yes, the damn Melazine that works in the Palais Mommonia. When it comes down to things, I think Neuvillette is obviously the MVP, because he is the only person that literally cared for Farina and her safety, and basically for what she is as a person and who she is and things of the sort, right? He had to be hard on her, but that's because she wouldn't open the hell up about anything. And of course, it's understandable on her side, but Neuvillette needed answers as well. And of course, out of anybody that was going to care for Farina at some point in time, it would legitimately be Neuvillette, considering that they known each other for a long period of time. So that just is what it is on that front. It's understandable why the Fontanians might hate Farina, because we thought you were the god of this country. So of course we want to see you effing, get some type of justice handed to you for not telling us what is going on, right? And even when they did find out, then they don't want to necessarily see anything bad happen to Farina now, because, they were created by the Hydro Archon. So that just kind of is what it is, right? But in that moment when you didn't know why she was doing it, if you were a Fontanian person, you would be like, yeah, I basically want, her to give us the answers that we need, right? It doesn't matter what has to happen. I just want her to give up the answers, because this don't make no type of freaking sense. That's literally how it is. So of course, it's understandable for the Fontanian people, Navia and Cloran and them included, to not necessarily care too much about the feelings of said Archon. It makes all the sense in the world for Neuvillette to be like that, because again, that's the person that they worked with like the most. That's the person that been around them the most and all sorts of things. So the fact that they had to kind of do this to make this plan. Hell, even when it comes down to setting up this trap, Neuvillette was like the only person that was like, I would like this to be a gentle trap. Something that can actually get them, but also not bring any harm to the person if necessary. And also, when Navia brought up the diluted primordial seawater, the whole thing, Navia was just like, oh yeah, you might want to admit your guilt, you bitch ass person, and stuff like that. But Neuvillette, what did he say? He was basically like, since this was something that Navia brought in, you don't necessarily have to do this. So it would be wise to just, maybe move on with this, Basically giving her a chance to not necessarily put her hand in there if she doesn't really want to. And at the end of the day, he's just being, caring. He really does care and respects Farina in some shape and form, So again, it makes sense. Fontanians make sense as why they cannot necessarily care too much about her before the secret and stuff. Neuvillette makes sense because he been around Farina for years at this point. So let's talk about the Traveler, because I've seen on social media plenty of people saying that Lamine is a bitch ass person because they didn't necessarily care too much for Farina's feelings and anything like that. And to be fair, I agree with those people. But there is also something that we have to talk about. Now, as you play the mission, I'm not gonna lie, Hoyoverse could have done a little bit better of a job, which is why I give this whole thing a 9.9. Because I feel like while we were trying to figure out her secrets, and we did, we never thought about Farina's mental state. Even after figuring out the truth, before we go fight the damn narwhal beast whale thing, like, we could have literally had a scene where the Traveler looked up at where Farina was, made a sad face for a slight second, and then get back to being serious for a moment. And that would have been something. That would have been enough in perfect storytelling, and to show that, the Traveler does give a shit about Farina and her well-being. But the entire time, it didn't feel like she did, right? Unless you rewatch it back and you're like, okay, she does, but like at the same time, it feel like she didn't. So when she was asking the damn questions about telling the truth the first time before they got to the opera house, of course, she wanted Farina to come through and basically tell the truth. Basically say, yo, this is the last chance you're gonna get. Tell me, someone that is not even from this world, the plan and whatever, to, help save you some trouble and give you peace of mind and whatever. But obviously, because of the duty that was inlaid upon her by the actual Full Slore Archon to Farina, she couldn't necessarily do that, obviously. And so many people were like, when I was reading on social media, they were like, I don't like how this was done because they could have found a whole nother way as to get the truth out of her. You really had no other options. Plus, this was prophesized in the damn stone tablets. They literally said, we're gonna take this bitch to trial and we're gonna figure some things out. That's literally what the whole point of this was. She was not going to speak at all until this trial happened. And that's really how it had to go down. It sucks it had to go that way, but Farina literally didn't give us any type of choice in the matter of the damn quest. And when you really think about it too, when you paid attention to her inner thoughts, when she got to that point, when they replay that scene again about Lamine talking to her, talking about tell the truth, it's the last chance you're gonna get. Farina thought about it. She literally wanted to say something about it. She said she wanted to, but she had her duty to keep it a secret still. And she ultimately, if that scene were to play out, wouldn't have said a single word. And guess what Lamine said? Fine. So of course, this trial had to be the thing that breaks Farina, unfortunately. And this scene reminds me so heavy of Kingdom Hearts 3 when Vanitas, Ventus, and Sora had to have that conversation in the Keyblade graveyard, where basically people couldn't accept that. I think Sora couldn't accept that Vanitas was like darkness for some reason, and he's like, why do you have to be that way? That doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. Couldn't we do this like a different way so everybody could be happy in some shape and form? And so Ventus was like, I didn't ask for this, but we should be able to choose for ourselves. We shouldn't have to be just light and darkness and whatever. And then Venus is just like, but Ventus though, like, I did choose, and I choose to ultimately side with darkness, and that's just how it is. And then Ventus basically just had to accept that. Sora was the only person that didn't. Don't you think this scene in KH3 plays very familiar to us right now with this Farina situation? Farina is literally Ventus, not Ventus, but Vanitas trying to keep up this thing that he has to be. And, obviously being darkness, and Farina having to basically keep up this act of being the Hydra Archon. Literally, Lamine is like, alright, if that's how you want to play it, then fine. And that's literally her playing the Vince role, while we, the player of the character, and just the audience of people that's watching this game, we're Sora just being like, why is this okay? This isn't right, though. So, that's literally how this shit goes for the entirety of the scene. We're out here trying to hope for the best of things, yet Lamine is just saying this is fine, and so, Farina keeping up this damn act because we know what has to happen now. So, despite as many people might be mad at Lamine, and I completely understand that, at the end of the day, this had to happen this way. This literally was the only way this was going to get Farina to speak and talk about it in some shape and form, right? And to have Fuslo to actually reveal herself within the oratories as well. So that's literally just how that had to go. The only thing I would say that rubbed me the wrong way when it comes to that whole trial sequence was essentially the reasoning of why Lamine wanted to basically try to save Farina for some reason. And it's because she owed her answers. And I feel like that's a really shitty reason. And that's why I can't necessarily give this whole mission a 10 out of 10. Because it's like, oh, so that's the only reason why you wanted to save her, right? Or at least that's what it came off as. Like, oh, she owed me answers. Like, she owed me something. Like, Farina owes me money or something. And it's just like, come on. Is that really the only reason why we have to save her? Or try to reach her in time? That doesn't necessarily feel right. And as I said before, if they added a scene where she looked at Farina and knowing the truth now, felt sad about it for like 10 seconds, and then went back to about to go fight the damn almighty eating bitch ass narwhal thing, then that would have been fine, right? But that didn't happen. So it came off as, oh, I'm selfish as hell when I'm the traveler, and so I basically want what I want, screw her mental state. And that's the worst part of how it kind of felt, and what it came off to me and to a lot of other people. It just came off that, oh, Lamine is just an asshole. Keep in mind, too, Lamine hasn't had a good track record when it comes to being a nice, decent person so far. Because as time kind of goes on in Fontaine, the first damn part was, oh, the whole trial with Lenny and Lynette, where for some reason she didn't necessarily want to trust these people, even though you trust Child. And it's weird. You didn't say shit about Arlecchino or try to put her in some type of weird scenario of like, oh, I don't trust you, give her resting bitch face the entire time. No, you didn't do anything like that when it comes to her. You didn't do anything like that. You didn't do that shit to Child, you didn't do that shit to Arlecchino, but you gave that shit to the people that didn't necessarily need it, like Lenny and Lynette and Farina. Honestly, when I saw that scene though, I was like, bruh, I'm about to ready to be just go into this screen and slap the shit out of Traveler. Just because I really don't agree with how they've been writing this character of Traveler, honestly. Because she's been like this since Inazuma, basically. She didn't start out like this, but she's been like this since Inazuma. Basically being more sassier than normal. And it's been so weird. It's been such a weird thing that they decided to do for some reason. And it's kind of completely unnecessary that they did it like this, right? And so if they could tone down that sassiness of her, that would be kind of decent. You know? Because it's like, you have to go through all these damn nations. Clearly you're going to basically be the hero in each nation as time kind of goes on. So you might as well get over it and then just try to help out as best you can. Plus, you've been to how many worlds? And you said in the last Days Live mission that you've seen all types of hope and despair with people in these different worlds. So surely you should know how to handle certain situations or how to feel out certain situations regarding people and what they might need to hear at that moment in time. The only reason why I won't go as hard into Lamine is because in the story quest for Farina that you do after the Archon quest, they have a moment where Farina just basically vents out every piece of frustration that she has and opens up into a way where the Traveler can actually care for her for real this time. And that fixes the problem. But I hate that it was also separated in a whole nother quest just for me to see that the Traveler does give a shit about Farina in Poisson, and that's literally how that had to go in that, you know, quest after the fact. It still is kind of annoying. And if someone's like, well, I still hate Traveler, valid. I feel that's valid, right? I do feel like that's valid. But at the end of the day, she doesn't necessarily hate Farina. She doesn't necessarily don't care for her. Because again, the story quest does make up for that, and it is very well done, right? So that fixes that problem. But still, it's just like, well, it would have meant so much more if in the Archon quest, she kind of just looked at Farina and gave her, like, you know, a small sad like face or something like that. And that's essentially it. That's essentially it. Instead of having resting bitch face the entire time. That's literally the whole entire issue with me regarding that damn, you know, story quest when it comes to the Archon quest, obviously. That's my whole issue. So if they would just gave her a moment where she was sad for a second, that would have fixed that issue for me. Because throughout this entire time, it just literally felt like no one cared about Farina's mental state when it comes down to things. Because you're basically playing this character for your real life for 500 years. And no one questions, oh, is she mentally okay? I'm pretty sure she wouldn't. I'm pretty sure anybody in that position would not be okay. Which makes her honestly Archon level just because she put up for this shit for years upon years upon years, honestly. Which is why I'm so happy that when it comes to the conversation between the other Archons, when you unlock their friendship level, they're talking about Farina and not Neuvillette. I'm so happy that they have positive things to say, that she's a strong individual and strong character and a strong person for putting up with that role for so many years, because and she saved Fontaine, and hell, even going as far as having Vinci say that she could probably save the world if she really wanted to, if that was the case, because we can believe that type of character. That's honestly some well-deserved praise after all that stuff. And that's just really something that I wish and hope that when you have events in Fontaine to happen in the future, that we see maybe Vinci or Zhongli or A or whoever basically come to Fontaine and just basically have a good time with Farina. Because she deserves, again, to basically be praised up, honestly. She actually, for once, deserves some damn praise for just being that strong ass character and strong individual, for keeping up said facade just for her other divine divinity counterpart to basically do what she had to do to deceive, again, Celestia and the Heavenly Principles and all that sort of stuff. That was some effort, no cap. I do feel like there's going to be some people that's going to make some definitely big character essays on Farina. I can 100% see that because she's such a well written character with the context that she's in and the stuff that she's been through. There's so much to Farina that honestly really should be talked about more. And it's just going to be a fun time to see what people could say about her, honestly. The other character, and I said this in the beginning, you're probably wondering, alright, you said all this stuff about Neuvillette, Traveler, and Farina. Why does Sadine matter so damn much? Well, at least in a little bit of a form, right? So when it comes down to things, the only time you really see Sadine really talk heavy is when Paimon brings up the fact that, what happens if Fontaine just drowns tomorrow? What you gonna do then? Like, how would you respond to the end of the world happening for you? And Sadine just like, well, I mean, why does that matter? Like, I'm still gonna get my cake today, so why would I bother about worrying about tomorrow, honestly? It is about living in the moment, and you must do as such as humans. So, she basically orders, like, another slice of cake for both Traveler and Paimon, and she's just like, this is for you. I've heard that this is what humans are called being sad. So I'm like, oh, okay. Because obviously Melzines, if you don't know, they don't necessarily read human emotions like that. So obviously they get taught that by Siegewin, who is also a Melzine, who also has to learn this stuff. And they just get taught that through her. And that's amazing, right? So she's basically just telling you that, you know what, instead of trying to worry about what tomorrow brings and things like that, what's stopping you from knowing what you want to do today? And that's essentially the good shit, right? And it just goes to show you, even though the Traveler in Paimon does not pick up on it at all, it just goes to show you, even with Charlotte, that they care about, what they want to do, about their freedom, and about, basically going out there and live, honestly. It felt like to me that while Neuvillette was bringing in the hard type of passionate love, it was also about Sadine and Charlotte bringing in the softer kind of it when it comes to thinking about Farina's state and all this stuff, right? Is that, yes, you should be hard on her, but also don't forget she's still a person at the end of the day, so you might need to be soft on her. At least that's kind of how I interpreted it and kind of went down that rabbit hole of things, right? Like, you should be soft on Farina, but only when the time really, comes after the whole thing. And again, that's what they basically end up doing in the second quest that she ends up having in the story quest. But let's leave Farina and her situation alone for a little bit. Let's talk about Skirk a little bit too, because we can't necessarily just have this video about the damn quest and not talk about the weirdest part of the damn quest in the entirety of, what's going on. So obviously, Skirk is Child's Master, and when it comes down to things, she looks different, like extremely different from any other character in Genshin. No doubt she'll probably be playable at some point in time, but when will that happen? Probably no time soon. Let's just keep that stacked. And when it comes down to things, she has somewhat of a similar design to the Heavenly Principles. So that's also like another thing to consider. And now we're starting to get to more conversations about what's beyond to that. What is the stars? And all this sort of stuff. And now it's like, oh my. I'm starting to think Genshin Impact is not going to end when we get to Conria. I don't think it's going to end when we get to Conria, because at the end of everything, you got Conria, right? You got the whole thing with that. You got Snezhnaya the Fatui and all that nonsense. You got the Abyss, which is related to Conria, so that's that, basically. But looking at those two, those are stuff that has to do with this world and things of that sort, right? What is beyond the stars? Because it feels like they're trying to set up that maybe once this whole thing with Conria is done and all of Teyvat is done, they might carry on with the game still. Which would make sense because, honestly, have you not seen how many people play Genshin still? Have you not seen the literal amounts of people that is still packing heat when it comes to this game, honestly? People that still care and actively play it? Like, it would be kind of foolish to just end Genshin in a way, right? To just completely end it. They might pull a Honkai Impact 3rd, try to be like, you know what? We're gonna keep this shit going and just basically keep it going to a point where things kind of start over again. Sure, you might not necessarily talk to all the other characters that you met before the first go around, but it might still keep going. It could. And I wouldn't be too mad at that. Hopefully they'll have enough to change up some things and make it fresh still. But if they decide to do that, I'm not necessarily too mad at that. And granted, I would kind of hate for Genshin to kind of end, mainly because you put so much money into this game, you put so much time into this game, you put a lot of love and effort to the characters and all this stuff and the story in this game, only for it to be just done and done. I don't know how I feel about that. Plus, there's no way to preserve an online game like Genshin, so to see all the arts of it, to see all the characters of it, the voices, and all that type of stuff to be gone, would feel kind of bad, honestly. So with this introduction of Skirk now in here, and the more talk about the stars and how things kind of going, and even hell, the Hexen Circle witches, and how much they are now like a part of the story, how more influential they are, you know, going forward, you might need to see that there is going to be something else that's going to be happening, honestly, right? So you have the Abyss, the Fatsui, and basically the Hexen Circle. I kind of almost forgot about them. So it's like there's definitely more shit going on here that we definitely do not know. There's beings that is equivalent to the Hexen Circle, how powerful they are, right? At least that's what Skirk ended up saying. So again, there is going to be something else that is going to be besides Conria, besides the Abyss, besides Fatui and the Gnosis and things like that. Hell, the person that even tells us that, yeah, the Gnosis is not necessarily a good thing to have around is Skirk. So that tells you that, yeah, whatever that the Fatui is going to try, whatever that Sheshai is going to try, probably won't work. And at the end of all things, it's probably going to lead into a very new, bigger plot line that might end up happening that might have nothing to do with Conria. That may not have anything to do with anything. It might be a whole separate thing entirely beyond Tibet. So, or maybe a restart of Tibet. Because I believe they did say that if you collect all the Gnosises, you can have the power to restart Tibet or something like that. Or there's some way you can restart Tibet. But it wouldn't be surprising if that ends up being the case, right? So, at the end of all things, where is Genshin going to go after Conria? Probably it's to something else that is new, right? I actually now don't see Genshin ending at Conria now. I think they're going to go for as long as they can. What that's going to be, I have absolutely no idea. You probably are going to be able to keep your characters from the past, which would make a lot of sense. But still, nonetheless, you know, it's not going to be what you think it probably is going to be, how it's going to end in the way you think it's going to end. I don't think it's going to end in the way anybody really suspects, honestly. So as far as Skirt goes, I just think that we're going to get something else that's a bit different, honestly, than what we really think, how the story's going to continue going on, honestly. So we'll have to see how that kind of goes, right? Also, there's another character that also deserves an MVP slot, and now I think about it because I really didn't think about it too much till now. But Mona Magistus, or Mona the Great, right? She should be Mona the Trismegistus, but we don't get into that. But still, nonetheless, she's pretty damn decent in this one too, because she's also with Sadine as like a person that is caring for, showing you a caring side that they probably should have put towards Farina as well. But when it comes down to things, she was also very caring when it comes down to things as well, you know? Even though Mona is the type of person that does like attention as well and likes to have praise and all sorts of things. But at this end of the day, Mona's pretty damn decent, honestly. Like, you gotta give Mona a bit of props in this one for getting, you know, her master to talk to the traveler to figure things out. For basically trying to, you know, cheer everybody up when it comes down to this whole situation of Tibet when it comes to the Fontanians might be drowning and shit in Fontaine, whatever. So that's like a whole nother thing that you could give her some props for. And there's definitely some parts of it I'm probably not covering that you could probably tell that, you know, Mona definitely deserves. So if we had to say MVPs of this damn patch, it's gonna be Neuvillette, Sadine, and Mona 100% when it comes down to things. I guess you could chuck Navia in there too, because Navia equally suffered as well, right? Like, she literally lost her right hand man and all that type of stuff. And she's basically in the same boat as Farina, just Farina's a lot more harder to, you know, be around when it comes to, you know, her suffering and stuff like that. So that's also like a whole nother thing. And honestly, if you didn't necessarily like Navia before, I think you'll like Navia now. So that's like a whole nother thing when it comes to it too. So very much looking forward to her in the 4.3 patch when we get to that point. The only other thing I guess I could really say is that at least they didn't end the whole thing with Farina on a very sad note. She did get her freedom, you know, and even though she might be in an oppressive state eating macaroni all the damn time, still nonetheless, I'm rather glad to see that in the story quest they give her a vision and that she can use her hydropower now, and they basically give her a more kind of bittersweet-ish ending. Like, she still doesn't know what she wants to fully do, but she is in a better state of mind now. It would be incredibly better if they didn't necessarily give her the time of day of basically cleaning up the mess that is the hot mess of Farina, right? It would be absurd if they didn't necessarily just say, yeah, so Farina is not going to get shit. She's basically going to be, you know, in the background now. No one cares about this girl. People want to beat her ass because she lied all this time, even though there was a good reason for why she had to do it. But still, nonetheless, you know, they did end on a good note. And as far as I feel, when it comes to Farina's character, honestly, she's good, right? Again, there's very few characters in this game where I'm like, damn, I would really just sacrifice everything for that character. Lamine is one of them. Chi-Chi is one of them. Definitely like some Baiju here and there, right? Newland is definitely goated. Farina is definitely one character I would definitely say that deserves the world and everything, honestly. She deserves a hug and a damn hip hat regarding everything that has happened, honestly. It's not necessarily even close to what ends up, you know, it doesn't even end up like close with anybody else, honestly. If we were to say who is the waifu of the year, honestly, I'm going to say it's Farina. It was close. Like, if we were looking at every sort of spectrum outside of Genshin, in Kamikatsu, I was damn near about to say Atar. She was about to be like the damn, you know, waifu of the year, but I didn't necessarily put that right there. She was tied, or at least she's like the second favorite, but Farina for me is my favorite, honestly. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean Lynette was bad, because I absolutely love the shit out of Lynette. And Arlecchino was pretty bad as well. You know, she was pretty solid as well as a character, you know? Especially after the previous patch where she just dragged Farina's damn name to the effing mud like it was nothing. So, that was also something as well. Charlotte was pretty damn good too, you know? Even for the little time she was actually there for the quest and stuff, I still like Charlotte's character overall. Really, everybody outside of Cloran, because we don't really know much about Cloran, but outside of everybody else, honestly, Fontaine has some of the best female characters. I'm not necessarily going to hold you. Everybody in Fontaine, female-wise, is like a 10 out of 10, which makes me more curious about how Chevreuse is going to be when they drop that character, and how Chlorine is going to be, and if Arlecchino gets playable, how she's going to end up becoming. I'm just very curious at this point, so, you know, you'd like to see it. And whoever this Chiori character is, I would like to see how they're going to basically go about this. So, I'm very much pleased with how the Fontaine female characters are when it comes down to things. So, overall, when it comes down to this whole stuff, this quest was really good. It could have been improved if they literally just had one moment where people cared about the mental state of Farina, and which still pisses me off a little bit, but not too much anymore, because again, the story quest kind of, you know, fixes that a bit, so that's good. But when it comes down to things, yeah, this was a really, really interesting quest, a really heavy ass quest. And hell, that's not even the only thing that this update even has to offer. Again, you got the story quest after, you know, the whole thing with Farina when she get her vision. You have the whole Narcissa Court stuff that I'm currently doing at the moment. And you have the whole thing with the rest of the new parts of the whole place in Areneus. So you have to check all that stuff out. But overall, that story quest was, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in and kind of accept, honestly. Like I said before, I give it a 9.9 out of 10 because it was just that damn good. If they were just put in a little bit of care for Farina's mental health, that would have solidified this quest tenfold. So that's my only issue. So that's basically my review of the entirety of the Fontaine quest. Damn straight, we were going to give Farina a waifu material video at some point in time. I don't know when, but we'll do it. But when it comes down to things, I really just want to talk about this one because there's been previous Archon quests that I have not had the chance to talk about. And at the end of the day, I really wanted to talk about this one and really want to publish this one. So we are definitely 100% doing that. And yeah, it's just a lot, honestly. As you probably could tell, maybe my voice is a bit raspy now because I've been speaking literally 40 minutes straight. So I'm about to end this bitch here. But hopefully, at the end of all days, you did enjoy when it comes all down to all of it. As you probably maybe seen in the previous video as well, we do now have a place of where we can meet at. It is a Blue Sky. If you have that app, please follow me on that app because that's going to be the place where we're going to be trying to start some things on there. And when it comes down to things, yeah, that's essentially how that is. But hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow me on the socials. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, Patreon is very much available as well. And man, yeah, I'm gonna have to rest my voice because my voice is tired. I need water. So until then, this being your boy Jay, sign off. Have a blessed day.